It isn't enough when a parent is overseas or maybe in jail or a job removes them from contact with their kids from natural causes. Then there is family law, where one parent is removed from their biology and the ongoing contact with their children. When there's no joint custody law in place, that's the kind of thing that happens. Then the non-custodial parent is simply a payer without power to parent. It is Uncle Daddy or Aunt Mommy. Seriously, how could any of you out there let sole custody continue? And you should be all going to your politicians to do something about that. The empirical data is clear, and parents instinctively know kids do better in an intact family and their biological parents available post-divorce. Today we will share one mother's story that should change your opinion on court custody and the subsequent challenges no family would want to endure, the court trashing of one who loses custody. I have with me Melissa Shea, who's lost custody to her children, and the impactful story we're about to hear from. So give us a little bit of a feedback on the story. A little background.
It started with a domestic violence incident. My ex-husband, and at the time I was pregnant, 9 months pregnant, an altercation happened, and it resulted in me having a broken jaw and the baby being induced in labor. And it was a tragic, stupid, bad decision on my ex-husband's part, but I didn't realize the events that would transpire after that. That pretty much in one night, I lost my entire family. The state comes in because it's domestic violence and automatically issues an court order of protection. I never applied for one, but the children were given one. Myself, I had an 8-year OP. The children were given a 5-year OP, order of protection.
Yeah.
And they were complete stayaways. A lot was going on in my mind at the time, and I thought it was very unjust that the court could just step in, and now I didn't approve of what their father did. It was not, I always said he was not a bad man, he just made a bad decision at the time. And I never, I always explained that to the children because it was kind of hard. They'd see my jaw wired shut. They would see me try to eat and, food coming out of my mouth. My son had a syringe feed me. I went into the hospital internally bleeding because if you have starvation, it starts eating at your body organs. So had a lot of complications from it. And I thought it was wrong that my children still had a father and they just cut him out of their life. So despite the pain and the hurt of what I felt, I loved my children, and I thought it was in the best interest that they still have both their parents. So I advocated for him to have visitation, really.
Access
to his children, because they cut him off in one day. So I went to court. I argued on his behalf, not really for his behalf, but really for the children.
Right.
Because I remember my son I asked him that Christmas, what does he want for Christmas? And he said, I want to know my dad's okay.
Yeah.
And broke my heart.
Yeah, sure.
So at that point, you do what you know is the right thing for your children. And there was a lot of healing that had to happen, not just physically, but emotionally. And we weren't given that opportunity because a judge comes in and makes a decision, and that's it. And time went on, and I was awarded sole custody, and I still had a hard time with that because I felt that it should have been joint the whole time, but they wouldn't grant joint. It's always sole or...
Because the state doesn't have it, that's why I mentioned that in the opening, yeah.
Yeah, and I tried putting it in the divorce, but because of the way the orders of protection were in place.
Oh yeah, that's going to interfere with that too.
Yeah, so, but oddly enough, despite the order of protection, the two of us did talk. We felt that it was in the best interest of our children if we had some communication. Some events happened, and I think he made another bad choice. I guess he listened to bad advice or whatever the case is, and I felt that we should share the time with the children, so I didn't listen to the court order where it said every other weekend he could have the children. I just felt like...
It shouldn't be penalized for something like that.
No children should be penalized from not wanting to see either parent.
Well, they look at you as the penalizable person. There's no extended circumstance because the kids aren't in court. that there's any application towards a justice element towards the kids. It goes right to you, what can we do to you? Never dealing with the fact that that kid is automatically going to suffer from that loss.
Right. They took no, I always heard that the courts look for the best interests of the children, and they don't. They look for their own interests, and that's it. And so by ourselves, we were able to establish some good communication, and circumstances were of such that in order to keep him out of jail for what he did, I made a deal with the DA that I would move out of state so that he wouldn't have to go to jail, because I felt there would be such shame on the children that I didn't want them to grow up with that stigmatism. My daddy had to go to jail for hurting my mother. And I thought...
How would moving out of the state help?
Because he kept violating the order of protection. So I didn't want him to... He was racking up felonies left and right. So, and the point was, he was not trying to do it maliciously, I don't believe. I think he was having trouble coping with the fact that he lost his family too overnight.
Sure.
And with no communication. But the fact was, he was scaring the bejesus out of me. So it seemed like a win-win, but we kept the lines of communication open for the children. Circumstances were such that my father got ill. I wanted to move back home. I proceeded to move back home. I asked him for his assistance, and unfortunately, he took that opportunity to take me back to court and get custody of the children.
How was that so easy for him?
I have no idea, because Judge Krecker, who is supposed to be an IDV judge, an integrated domestic violence judge,
Right.
the one who issued the 8-year order of protection for me and 5-year for the children and sentenced him to jail for the one night, without any disregard, he ordered temporary custody to be given to him and the trial to be heard later. And it took a year, and in one night, again, one day, now not only did I just lose an ex-husband, now I lost all my 3 children.
This is a perfect case for why joint custody, at the inception is the only way to go.
Yeah, because I think...
It's the only way to go.
The only thing I think he did it for was out of fear, because... he was behind on his child support, he was behind on his maintenance, he was struggling financially, or whatever the case may be. I don't know, but I wasn't concerned about the money. I figured we could work that arrangement out, not going to court. I think that could have been mediated, no problem. But when you take a child from a mother or a father, it's completely devastating. And I lost all my rights to my children without... I never smoked, I never drank, and everybody assumes when a child or children are taken from, especially a mother, well, she must have been really bad for them to take it from a mother, because they always award it to the mother.
The general public is uninformed about the relationship between the children and parents and the court. They look at the court as a higher authority and of higher intelligence. It's not anywhere near connected to family and what the right thing is to do to family.
And they always say, oh, well, the courts are looking out for the best interests of the child. No, they're not.
Yeah.
They have no interest in the children. And it's barbaric that they bombard the children, constantly asking. There were 2, 4, and 8 when they were taken from me. 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and the law guardian has the audacity to say to me, they chose the father over you. My son couldn't even complete a full sentence at 2 years old. And I kept saying, my 2-year-old told you this? Yeah. My 2-year-old, in court I'm saying this. My 4-year-old told you this? My 8-year-old autistic child told you this? Like,
yeah.
Where'd they get the information from? To make this decision.
Well, the only thing I could have done if I was in your shoes is ask for authentication for that.
I did.
I mean, I don't know what that would do.
It doesn't, basically what the authentication of that is, they stick them in the back with the judge and put them in chambers, which is just more demoralizing to the children.
It's scary for them, too.
Oh, it's horrible. And what was worse was I felt so much shame for it. Like, what did I do wrong? I beat myself up mercilessly for months. And I think my saving grace and God hearing my prayer, I wound up getting pregnant with my son now. And that he's 3 now, and he's been a joy and a love, but it never replaces the 3 you lost. And unfortunately, I guess a lot of legal advice was given to my ex not to give, not let me have time with them, and so my relationship was extremely alienated, and I always felt more betrayed because I had advocated so much for him, and I when he didn't have custody.
Didn't you say there was a possibility now that, that you're working things out better now, that maybe something like that could happen now? Because you can go back in, they can remediate. If he wants to agree to mediate, for instance, you can step back in and override.
Well, in the ultimate end...
It takes a little bit of paperwork dealing, but you can do it.
Yeah, in the ultimate end, that's what he and I did. And that was a shame. There was 4 years I've missed out on my children.
Sure.
4 years of pain for them.
That
4
they
years
missed
of
out on
pain.
you, too.
Yeah, and you don't get that bond back. I missed my son's kindergarten class because I drove all the way out there and they wouldn't let me see him because I had no parental rights and the father wouldn't answer the phone call. And
see, ladies and gentlemen, this is a primary reason why not having, absent a joint custody law, that the fall can be greater on either side of the equation.
it doesn't matter which side it
That's right.
is. I mean, I would feel the same pain for a father, that I don't get to be tooth fairy. I don't, all those little moments, key moments. I didn't get to see my son takes, potty
and
training.
the problem's cross-gender too.
Right.
I mean, there's an easy connection I can make toward. I already have made the connection many times as a father. I mean, realistically, you can't really put your shoes completely in the mother's state, but I can see other situations. I see yours being not all that far apart. But the kids losing their biology lose a major part of the information they should have for the rest of their lives, and now it's stopped by what? But not by you and your husband not being able to later on agree.
Yeah, in the end, at one point, it was definitely not in my favor because this temporary order of protection, a temporary order of custody, wound up taking 4 years to go to trial. And the day of the trial, it was going to look like it was going to be postponed again. Judge Behar, we had 3 judges. Judge Behar was about to bench out. It was going to continue in the cycle.
He was going to retire, you mean?
Yeah, he was going to retire. And Mary McNulty I had before then. And Judge Krecker was just really a disappointment. He violated his own orders of protection. He didn't protect the person he was supposed to protect. He allowed to be mocked in his own courtroom.
I'm very confused about him being, is it him that's the integrated domestic violence court?
Yeah.
I remember several attorneys telling me that was a good idea. I had always said that how do you go forward with a divorce case while you have a criminal aspect to it untried? That you should try that criminal aspect first before you get into the divorce, because the criminal aspect could have a huge bearing.
Well, they did. They did do the criminal. It's all supposedly under one banner, criminal.
Well, then
family,
they should be held more responsible. It's even more outrageous.
Yeah, he knew every aspect of this case, every aspect. We had 71 conferences, 60 of them before him. 60 times were before him.
I'd like to see if there's some way we can do that. I asked you about an appeal, didn't I? We talked about that,
we tried we couldn't make an appeal at that time because it was just temporary custody pending a trial. It wasn't an actual ruling. So that's at least what my attorney advised me, that we couldn't make an appeal until we actually had a trial. And that trial just never kept coming, We did have one trial before Judge Krecker. It lasted 2 months, 16 days on trial. And on the last day, Judge Krecker recused himself, said he couldn't do his job, is actually what
And he was the IDV.
He was the IDV judge. Now,
maybe that's why he recused himself, because theoretically he had no reason to be in that. If anybody knew, that's why I suggested maybe the domestic violence people. For nothing, we don't really see a lot of this, all right? But we do see an awful lot of reasons why they create it, and the reasons why they create it are just like yours.
Right.
They're just like yours. So if they're going to create this IDV to help a person like you who was obvious in need, the connection is automatic and immediate for me. I mean, I don't have to be a rocket science to see if you're going to use an IDV, let's do it.
Yeah, or if you
But
do...
he fell short, and if the domestic violence people knew that this judge had fallen short, they would have had him bounced.
Well, the unfortunate part is he has a very large track record of doing this, taking domestic violent women, taking the children away from them. And I think it sends such a...
I mean, he already had a...
Yeah, he has, if you Google him on the internet, I mean, this actually is a friend of mine, he took custody away from her and a domestic violence incident and gave it to her ex-husband, who was not even the father of the child. and it was the
Oh my God,
stepfather,
nope.
and she's been fighting for 7 years because of Judge Greco.
Well, I should have her reach me. I'd like to hear her story.
It's heartbreaking, and there's countless stories coming out of that court that need to have change done, because it sends a message. It even sends a message to my 3 boys. It's okay to practice, to break your mother's jaw while she's pregnant, to not pay your child support, not pay your maintenance, and you know what? You're rewarded with custody and no jail time.
Disregard the mother, give her less credence than the father. There's a million. You can run down the litany of possibility of error here is now increased exponentially for the kids. Now, you may not, I hope, you may not suffer from that, because sometimes that's depending on how the kids mature.
Right.
But sometimes you don't.
Right.
And you have that to deal with later on, and that's all because somebody can't do their job.
Yeah, and you know what? And the thing is, it was, like I said, it was a bad incident. I think he and I could have gotten past it had we not had all this court interference, because in the end, the 2 of us mediated an arrangement that is fairly new. It's probably about a week old. But the fact is, I believe going forward we can start healing, all of us.
Could you suggest at this point, because you did and you were successful mediating your issue, could you suggest that they modify, I'm not saying reverse, because New York, if you leave it to the court, you won't be able to get a reversal.
I've tried. That's the thing.
No, you can step out of that whole arena. You can go.
Not with domestic violence when it's part of a sentencing of a criminal act.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring forth the case. The state of New York did.
That has to be appealed.
And here's the thing. Now we have it modified that we can talk about the children. But I'm upset that I don't have any say in my life. He doesn't have say in his life. You know what I mean? It's like, because he's afraid to talk to me because I have this piece of paper. He can be arrested at any time. And I don't want the piece of paper. I can't get rid of the piece of paper. My children don't benefit from this piece of paper. I mean, I'm glad it's there for the protection, but at one point, I think this is also a really important point, that at any stage, you can do mediation. I mean, even as horrible as that incident was, and as outlandish as it sounds that he did.
Over time, you can fix things.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't know that there was another alternative. When a marriage is falling apart, our instincts are to think about divorce, and we break, our lines of communication break down. And instead of turning to each other and say, okay, let's end this thing peacefully and for the benefit of our family.
Culture of divorce says go hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's the subject of my whole mantra about, we live in a place where we have to go to the wrong people.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the history.
Yeah, you go to a lawyer because you think that's what protocol says. But there is another way, and I think if I can just communicate that to people, that even if you had a domestic incident, I don't think mine was more extreme.
It's a good sample. It's a good sample discussion you can have.
Yeah, it's another way to say, you know what?
It's obvious we shouldn't be married, but here you are. Just done a couple of programs where I feel like the victim has to go further into victimhood.
Yeah.
You have the double stigma attached to this one.
Yeah.
What did you do wrong? And you spoke to me something about the medical information you were trying to get. What was all that about? At the school, I think?
Yeah, I was trying to get...
The doctors refused to share medical information?
I tried to call up on the doctors for my children. They would refuse to give it to me. The teachers would have to ask his permission to get, I couldn't talk to the teachers. I had to work through him.
Right.
But I think the worst part was I was going to... counseling, because this obviously destroyed me emotionally. So I was seeing a counselor for how upset I was and about losing the children. She knew the whole situation, and she knew I had another child. He was 6 months old, and she was about to start a CPS investigation on me, because if I was found to be unfit as a parent for my other 3 children, then I must be unfit for my new child.
That's unbelievable.
And they did investigate him, and they had to take his diaper off, and it was...
Oh, man, for sexual abuse and stuff like that?
Yeah, they were checking for everything, bruises, bumps, anything. And it was the most disgusting, humiliating thing, and my stepchildren all had to be interviewed. It was...
Had you been in mediation, I'm going to be honest with you, there are occasional mediations that blow up. We can't control them in the beginning. The couple comes to us first time, they haven't seen an attorney, they think they have attorney and legal rights, they think they have this, they think they have that, they know the percentages, they do the research. But what they don't do is try to communicate effectively.
Right.
That's my job, is really to see that they communicate effectively. Once I see them communicating effectively, it just goes right in 3 days, or sometimes in 6 hours, we can get the whole thing done. Sounds crazy, but it can be done. And there's only this small fee for whatever it takes for us for the session.
To figure it out. You know, I bet you if you were thinking about divorce, if somebody was thinking about divorce and actually talked to people who went through an actual litigation of divorce and asked them what did they find good about it, what did you win? Court is not about winning, especially when a family's falling apart. There are no winners. There are no winners.
The belief system going in is that there is a winner. That's the culture of divorce.
Yeah, and that culture just needs to be educated. That's
the purpose of my show.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
But you hear it from a person who's just recently went through it, even and add another element of domestic abuse. I'll tell you this. His father, their father and I get along so much better now that we took control of our lives and got out of that court system.
There you go. You're the perfect answer right there.
It works.
It works.
It really works. I mean, it's fairly new, but I do believe the pain that we both went through has taught us lessons that it doesn't.
Life lesson. You wouldn't have learned them otherwise. But
it didn't have to be so long.
Yeah. Another thing is, you wouldn't have to be so harsh, or you wouldn't have to. Who'd sacrifice their kids or just to learn a lesson? I wouldn't do that.
No.
I'd say let the lesson wait. I'm not giving up my kids for that. So the long and the short of it is that the system doesn't really, the legal system doesn't really protect families. It can't. It was a late entry into divorce anyway. It started in 1964, the family court.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it just got progressively worse. The more implications of special interest groups like the domestic violence people.
Right.
Now, they've been doing their job in your case. You got a triple whammy.
Yeah. I mean, I had somebody sit with me from Vibes and stuff, but really all they can do is be a support for me. They can't be an advocate. They can't get involved in the legal aspect of it. And unfortunately...
They used to do that. I'm not sure if you can't still do that. And I give some serious thought to, looking at that situation again.
Yeah.
But, right now you probably have some kind of peace going on with him. You may not necessarily want to disrupt the peace, right?
No, I think healing has to begin for all of us.
Right.
And communication, I understand why an order of protection is needed. I'm not minimizing the safety of women or men, because it happens to men too, when you truly need it. But time apart, the fact is we still have children together. There is an element we have to learn to work together. And to finally have peace after 7 years of this, I've missed so much of my children's life.
Sure, yeah.
I don't want to miss any more. And
no, it was really tough for me too when I lost custody in the beginning. I mean, I didn't go through a battle over custody. I got caught up in some other area, but the child support issue was I had lost my biggest account, so my income got cut in half, and they wouldn't address it. So when my income got cut in half and they assessed the child support award, they assessed it at the higher level. So I was trapped into dollar errors. It took me 3 years, I think, to get a modification. 3 years, 31 trips to court, just to get a downward modification, just to have them look at my tax return. They wouldn't even do it.
And that's a shame, because you know what? It also, as parents, you have to recognize that financial life changes. I understand he's in a financial situation. I understand.
That's another thing, right?
You have to say, you know what?
There's going to be ebb and flow.
I can do a little bit more for the kids this month. I need you to pick it up next month.
Exactly.
And I was talking on the other show about how I find it insulting as a woman, thinking that I need all this money to survive. I can support myself and my children. I'm not back in the 1960s where the roles were very different, Majority of the families are at least 75% of double income.
Like we always say, I mean, now the second income is almost necessary.
Well, yeah.
Oh, it's almost necessary, because and if one person's income is a fluctuating income, that's really like a bank account to have another income.
Right.
Excuse me.
So, and I don't think
so
it
things
should
change.
Be, I don't think it should be one parent in disparity and one getting all the money. That's not a balance either. And it should automatically be joint custody, and they should work out their payment arrangements, because their family is different.
I'm sorry, I wanted you to keep going, because I
Oh, yeah.
I had something stuck in my throat.
Well, but I think I don't think a court has a right to tell you how to live your life and your family's life. What, you know what's best for you.
And they'll tell you, no, we didn't tell you. This is the way. This is the law, the way it is. It's just what it is.
Well, I say take back control of your life and go to a mediator, because
Right.
you know what? At least try it.
Yeah, mediation. We don't actually give anybody control. We help them take the control they would ordinarily have. It's not
Right.
like we're saying, here, you have to have control here. Control yourselves. It's,
No, I meant like control of your life, to say, you know what?
Absolutely, right.
You could have residential, but I want all the weekends. And you know what? Some people would say, oh, no, that doesn't work. But I know it works in my current husband's situation. Works great, you know? So
Yeah.
you have to do what's right for your family. And a judge
A stranger is not going to be able to make that decision.
Yeah.
They have to do a lot of work and hire forensics and get legal aids and law guardians and a whole bunch of other stuff to make
Yeah,
that
if the
work.
state wants to save money, get rid of all those law guardians, because their interest is not in the best interest of the child. That's not their role.
Right.
And for children
Besides that,
14 and under,
sometimes they're
what
not
do they
even
know?
parents.
Yeah, a lot of the one I had didn't even have children.
Yeah, really. I mean,
Telling me my 2- and 4-year-old chose their father over me.
it's just a wasted way of throwing money at things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Last comment, anything that you'd like to address before we go, because I only got about 30 seconds here.
That parents, when you think about divorce, be kind to each other. You don't have to make it adversarial. and when the communication breaks down, go seek help for the communication, how to make your life a better life afterwards. Because post-judgment of divorce could be really good afterwards if you have a peaceful relationship, and keep the courts out. Because
Yeah, keep the course out of the way.
they rule your life.
Yeah.
and
Thank
have
you
no
very
say.
much, Melissa Shea. Thank you very much. It was
Thank
a
you
great
so much
program.
for having me. I really appreciate it.
It was.
I hope I helped one family.
I'm sure you did, more than one, but hopefully it'll be many. We'll see how that goes down the road, I hope soon. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. And at FIT, you can get this information nowhere else but here. We really do expose things when we can, certainly. My name is Chris DiMaggio. We always invite all opposing views, and we're welcome to see you again next week.